right, ladies and gentlemen, Barstool Backstage. Jam bands, Fish, Grateful Dead have always been a conversation point on this podcast, either good or bad, some for it, some against it. The greatest of all time, the Grateful Dead, Dead and Company at the Sphere right now for the residency, and we had boots on the ground this weekend. Here to talk about it. Dan Katz, Big Cat, how are you, buddy?
Good. Who's shitting on jam bands?
Kenny, our AWOL Nation guy, fucking hates jam bands.
Okay.
Loathes them.
We've
Listen,
had multiple clips go viral in the last year for Kenny shitting on jam bands, which has been good for us, but also Kenny wanted to, he's not here, so he wanted to drop a message. This is his message to everybody to start this. To whom it may concern, I think you all need to grow the fuck up. Unless you're a 57-year-old Oregonian who retired at 21 because of your daddy's trust fund, only to use said fund in search of a higher power that came in the form of tie-dye and Birkenstocks. Stop listening to jam bands. Like John Mayer is the Matt Gaetz of music. I'll let you retort.
Okay, so how about this? Kenny's got a music podcast. Music is subjective, and who the fuck cares what anyone else listens to?
That's the only argument you can make.
And John Mayer is one of the greatest guitarists ever, and I witnessed it live this weekend. He absolutely shredded at the Sphere. Kenny sounds like he's just a fucking hater who hates his own life. That's one of those things you
basically nailed it.
You gotta look in the mirror and be like, oh, why am I so upset about other people enjoying a music genre? Maybe I'm the asshole and I hate my life.
Yeah, you basically nailed it. He is rich and he does live in like Beverly Hills or whatever. He is an asshole and he does hate everything. So you basically nailed that.
Yeah, that sucks. That's a terrible way to live because I had an incredible weekend and he'll never get to experience that.
Yeah, that's basically where we need to leave this off. I'm just going to clip that right away, send it to Kenny, and he's only going to send back like 2 words. He's going to say, I don't care. He doesn't because he's a fucking asshole.
But he clearly cares because he wrote that whole thing being like, stop listening to jam bands. So he clearly cares, whereas you could make the argument, I don't care because I won't even remember what he said in 2 minutes.
That's a fair retort. Now, what about this? What about... like they have become so commercially like, oh, you have to go to see Dead and Co when they're at Wrigley. Like everybody goes to it. Nobody can say the first thing about the Grateful Dead or like how they were founded or their history or anything. They go just because it's like the cool hip thing to do now.
I don't experience that. I haven't experienced that. If people want to go, great. If they don't want to go, great. I don't care. I love the band. The band's a big part of my life and like that's how I enjoy it. So I've never been a gatekeeper for music because it is so subjective and people like what they like. So it hurts no one to like a band. I don't even care.
Dan, I want to get into that because that was the original idea for having you on, was to talk about it, and then it just your schedule and our schedule never worked out. But how did that all become a thing? How did you get into the band?
Yeah. I mean, I've been a Deadhead. I always feel weird saying Deadhead just because I obviously never saw Jerry Garcia in the first form of the Grateful Dead because I'm too young. But I had a couple cousins who got me into it. One of the first concerts I ever saw was Phil Lesh and Friends at Alpine Valley in like 2001. And there's something about the Grateful Dead because of the way that they were so ahead of their time in terms of letting the fans tape all their shows, that the amount of music that they have out there is so deep that you can just dive into different years, different lineups. Like the band just has evolved so many times, including the Dead and Company now, where it's like endless. So it's almost like an experience that is unlike any other band because I could find a show that I've never heard and it could be my favorite show. And it's like, up until this moment, I'd never heard that. Like what other band can you do that for where there are, even if you think that you've found everything, there's something more to find, which is an incredible experience. And it's weird, like explaining it to people who might not be into it. I completely understand people who don't like it, but like the Grateful Dead, I could go 6 months without listening to any Dead, but I'll always find myself coming back to it. And like, I'll always find myself just like getting back into it. So it's not like I'm not listening to other music. I listen to all types of music, but they're just kind of the constant that's always there. And I always find myself drawn back to it, discovering new stuff and listening to new shows.
I'll say this, as much as I like to agree with Kenny, because I am also a hater, I'll disagree with him on this front. Like, my only criticism ever of bands is about sincerity. And I really don't think you can make the argument that Grateful Dead and the later incarnations of Grateful Dead are doing this in like an insincere way.
Right.
Like, whether you like it or not, it's fucking good music that it is serving its purpose for the sake of the music. Like, that's why I try to reserve all my hate for all the people that I hate.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's a really cool experience that they have with their fans, where they were very conscious from an early stage where they said, once we make the music, it's yours. And there's no really other band that, I mean, Fish obviously has done
so way ahead of its time in terms of like what's happening to like the ownership of music now. It's like the concept of copyright is so almost outdated. They were so fucking far ahead on that.
Right.
It was crazy.
And like the entire, I mean, obviously it's changed now because we have all the streaming platforms, but before that it was, trading tapes, and people would trade different shows. And it's just, it is just like, it's an ocean of music, and you can just find yourself, like, the best way to explain it is there could be songs that I didn't like for the Dead perform, and it's like, all right, I'm listening to a show and it's like, okay, I'm not really, and then all of a sudden it will click and I'll be like, wait, this is now my favorite song. And I like, so that experience is just every day can be new with all the music that they've put out, which I love.
Do you have, I know you mentioned like going through shows and finding your favorite shows. Like, do you have one that stands out to you as like your comfort, go back to, this is what I listen to kind of a show?
It's seasonal, because their tours obviously were seasonal. So like I will, like in the summer, I will listen to more summer shows. In the winter, I'll listen to more winter shows. The one that I always find myself going back to is, the Dead have had different keyboardists throughout the history, because they've had some bad luck in that department, kind of like the Spinal Tap drummer. But Brent Midland, 80s Dead, I love, and they have a show on, you can get it on Spotify. I think it's called Crimson, White, and Indigo. It was like Philly 1989. And I do find myself going back to that show a lot. Obviously there's, the Cornell 77 is what a lot of people will say is the pinnacle show, the Europe 72 stuff. But that's the thing, is like, you can just go into different eras and different spots of where they were, different lineups, and their sound changes so many times. But yeah, those are great. And then today, like what John Mayer has done for this band is incredible, because he's infused so much new life to it. And, Bob Weir's getting old, Mickey Hart's getting old. I mean, they are old, but he's just such an incredible guitarist, and being able to keep the music alive is like insane. Like the experience I had at the Sphere was just out of this world. Was it because visually, or because they were that good? It was both. Like Mayer had, and Saturday night at the Sphere was, I think, one of the greatest concerts I've ever been to, if not the greatest, because he was just on fire, and you could tell just from the beginning. And the other thing is, for people who don't know the Grateful Dead, the beauty of it is like, Dante texted me, he's like, you went to 2 nights. And I was like, yeah, I went to 2 nights, because no concert's the same. They always change their the lineup. If you go back-to-back nights, you don't hear any duplicate songs. I didn't hear any duplicate songs. And every concert tells a different story and has different moments to it. So yeah, it was like, I wish I had gone all 3 nights, and I want to go back, because you know that you're going to get a different experience every single night, that is another unique aspect of what they do that most bands say that about it. Yeah, most bands, concerts, they'll play their songs, they'll play their hits, and the Dead is about, they play different songs, the jams are different, the solos are different, the moments they find, like they'll hit peak moments where it's like, it's improvisation and it's something that you didn't think you'd be able to hear, and then you're there for it. So yeah, it's really incredible.
It kind of ties into the Foo Fighters thing that with Dave Grohl just talking about basically shitting on Taylor Swift, or at least implying that. Like, that is an interesting thing. Like you're saying, there's no, like, never mind other bands. It's like most music these days is literally not being played. It's
Right.
playback tracks where maybe you're getting a bit of live vocal over it. So I feel like there's probably going to be a growing resurgence, even of young people like being like, I just want to see something that might be different.
Right.
Like
Right.
just
Like
the thought that it could be different.
Right. Like on Saturday night, Mayer accidentally started to play Althea before they were going to play Althea. And it was like one of the coolest moments because he like made a mistake. He put down his guitar. He did a lap. They went into Stella Blue. Then they went into Althea. But like the crowd, it like built because they were like, we know it's coming. And that guitar riff is so unique that he like went into it and then he stopped. He's like, shit, that's not what we're doing right now.
Of all the songs to do like a false start on, that's
dude.
the crowd's all waiting for it.
The crowd was like on fire from that moment.
Here's a question I got for the two actual musicians in the room. With all due respect to Dante, and that wasn't a slight in any way, but
Button pusher.
Fight.
I think I've seen Dead & Co. How long have they been in iteration with since like
2015 is
16?
when Mayer joined him. Yeah.
So I think I've seen him since 2017 onward, as stands from the pandemic years. And John Mayer to me is John Mayer. Like the dead are the dead. But I was always super impressed with how he's still able to kind of take a back seat to the music, and it shows like an appreciation for it.
Yeah.
almost.
Well, he's actually, and I think what's happening now with them is he's starting to assert himself a little bit more, which is great because he feels comfortable. It's been something that he's been a part of for a while now. He feels like the guys are all on the same page. And like I said, like the Dead, so how it kind of breaks up is like Bob Weir has always been kind of the rock and roll guy, like the first set songs. Mayer obviously is doing a lot of the guitar solos, Jerry stuff, but it's just like a beautiful blend where he now feels fully comfortable and he just rips. Like he just ripped on Saturday night.
I mean, Dave, to go to your point, John Mayer's a great chameleon. He fits into most situations that he goes into, whether he's doing stuff with a BB King or he's sitting in
Dave
different
Chappelle
blues or
even.
jazz situations.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. The thing about what he's doing right now and what I think is so special is that you can see that he really cares about this and there's a passion there.
Definitely. You can
So
see it in his
that's
eyes.
why
It's
I think
palpable.
people in the Dead circles appreciate it now. Now, Dan, did you, when he got announced as being with the Dead, did you have any trepidation? Were you at any point like, what the fuck? This guy's a pop star. Why is he with us? Like, did you ever have that, or did you
I
kind
always-
of jump off him?
Yeah, initially I was like, this is a weird fit. And then you listen and you're like, no, this fit actually makes perfect sense. And his story about it is like, you know, he listened to Althea in like 2012 or something and was like, oh, wow, this is different. And yeah, I think that he came into it from a place of like sincerity that translates to the music. So yeah, there were definitely like, this is kind of weird. I don't really understand it.
Whose call was that? And how did that become a thing?
I don't know. I know Trey was playing with them for their last final tour, and then it became Mayer. But I don't know. I think he just liked the band, and then they met, and it became a thing. And it's like it's incredible where he's taken the music. He's taking it to a different place. You can't ever replace Jerry Garcia, but and no one goes into it thinking that. But he's different, and it's incredible to hear the difference and where the music goes with him. And that's kind of the genesis of the Dead. More than anything is like they say the music never stops, and it's like that's what he's done is he's kept the music alive.
Well, in a
There's an
sense, it's a
incredible-
credit to
I think it's
to
been huge. I
jam
think it's been
band-
huge credit too. Also,
Credit to who?
oh, sorry.
I was saying it's a credit to jam band music and improvisational music in general, because it is not necessarily about this. Like a star like John Mayer comes in and he could try. It's not like you're replacing a lead singer.
Right.
Like the music itself is based on kind of the communal aspect of jamming, and you have to like literally, from a technical standpoint, you have to be listening to one another and having an open conversation.
Yeah.
And I think that music itself kind of dictates that in a sense.
Yeah. And you can see it on stage when they're all just hitting that spot together where they're all like on the same wavelength, and that's the special sauce.
I think it's been huge for his credibility. I mean, he went from like on set.
Well, that's the thing, though, Dante. He had credibility. Like there was credibility within the music community of him with the blues musicians and with Steve Jordan and Pino Palladino. But I think to take this complete left turn, and he did it in his own music. Paradise Valley, which is a 2013 record from him, is all Dead. You could hear it before Dead and Company happened. So to understand that like he didn't get love right away. There was this like trepidation from a lot of Dead fans that didn't think he was going to fit or this didn't make sense. I enjoy seeing the love that people have for it now. And I think the Sphere shows have been huge. I have a lot of friends who've seen it. All right, buddy.
It was insane. Yeah, the Sphere shows were like off the charts. It's an experience that if anyone is a Dead fan, or even if you're not, like it's that special. But you're right. Like I think Mayer's finally getting the respect he deserves as one of the greatest guitarists of all time. And I confidently can say that. And I think people are now realizing that, which is awesome for him because he deserves all that credit.
As far as the shows went this past weekend, because obviously you said you did both nights, it was incredible. Did one night stand out over the other? And I know you've talked a lot about Saturday night being like a Mayer masterpiece, but as far as the sets go, were you happy with the sets both nights? Was there one that you preferred over the other? Or was this all kind of one big song?
Yeah, no, it was the second show was my favorite just because it was just they were on fire. And I told Dante this. I hope this doesn't come off as well, it's not a brag. It's just I'm telling you guys a story. I was lucky enough I got to meet John Mayer on Saturday night. So he slid into my DMs on Friday and was like, "Oh, Big Cat in the house." And we got to talking and I was like, "Dude, I'm a huge fan." And he's like, come to my green room before Saturday's show. So I went and I hung out with him for like 20 minutes, just the two of us. And he told me before the show, he's like, "I'm feeling a little under the weather." And he's like, "But when I'm not feeling 100% physically, it's the best guitar I play because my mind is blank." And then he went out. And so like I knew that from like what he had told me. And then he went out and it was just insane what he did on the guitar. The second set, St. Stephen, Morning Dew, Althea, like it was just out of this world good. Yeah.
I mean, I've seen Mayer a few different times and he always shocks me because he'll switch a lot between acoustic and electric and different arrangements. And he has so many different musicians, but the arrangements, cause I've watched a lot of these shows on YouTube and they're fucking incredible. And Bob Weir's never going to blow anybody away with his guitar ability, but to sit over top of him and do what he does. And the Althea, I think it was in Boston. I think it was their last show. It was supposed to be their last show.
Oh, it was in San Francisco. Yeah.
That's dude. I mean, his work on Althea is incredible. Like of that second set on Saturday night, what was the peak moment for you?
Althea was up there because I love it, but I love Althea. I love the song. I love what he does with it. I actually thought the St. Stephen was like it was just an insane place they went with Mayer on the guitar. And that was like, it was just one of those moments I was just sitting there like almost in tears. I'll say it. It was a little bit of the mushrooms. But it was just, it was like a transcendental kind of moment where the music and the visuals and the mushrooms took you to a place that like, it was, I don't know, it was Nirvana. Yeah.
There's no way to convey perfectly what that room feels and sounds like unless you've been there and experienced it.
Right.
There's just no way to put it into words.
Right. And it's my favorite band playing there. And it goes back to the beginning with what was that guy's name? Kenny. Like I don't care that he thinks it's stupid. I had an experience that I'll have in my brain for the rest of my life and look back on and be like, that was so awesome. So I do not care what anyone else thinks about it. I know what I experienced and I wouldn't trade that experience for anything.
Did you have any?
Where were you at? Were you on the floor or were you
we had
on
both,
one of the levels?
We had both. We were sitting on this front row, the second level. The people
that's the best. I think that's the best place in the house.
Yeah, and then we went down to the floor for the second set on Friday night, which was awesome. My neck started to hurt though because I was looking up so much. But I don't know if there's really a bad seat in that place. I mean, there might be in the first level all the way back, but it's crazy how they've put it all together.
Who else would you want to see there? Because I mean, I know you're a big music guy. I know you love the band. We have a lot of the same shared musical kind of ideas. Like, who else do you think would be a good
close
fit
our
there?
musical taste is?
What do you mean?
So I talked.
They
to
played
POT.
The Wait on Friday night. Yeah, it was awesome.
Did they?
Yeah, it was awesome.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. What other bands?
So when we had Barstool Radio on Sirius, we could just pick songs that introduce our show, and we would just rotate every week who picked it. And you picked a Tedeschi Truck song that was like off the beaten path. I was like, who picked that? Because that's like a low key Susan Tedeschi's song, and whoever was controlling music said you did.
Yeah.
She's coming in here in a month, by the way.
Oh, nice.
That's still one of my favorite clips of all time. Speaking of Tedeschi and John Mayer, is that clip where he's sitting on stage with Tedeschi, John Mayer, Derek Trucks, and then BB King, and like you have to give it up. As good as John Mayer, like they all admit it, they're just like fucking hell. Derek Trucks is there, just like turning.
Derek Trucks is insane. Yeah, but I mean, I would like to see. I mean, Fish looked like incredible. I'm a Fish fan as well. I don't know. I mean, like I think one of my other favorite bands is Queens of the Stone Age. That would be fucking awesome if they came. If they did that there, I would definitely try to get out for that.
Imagine Josh Homme on that giant screen. He's already fucking as big as the screen.
And they would come up with some insane visuals. But yeah,
you could not do mushrooms at that show.
Yeah. I think it'd be hard not to put on a good show there. Like I don't know how you two went. Someone was saying they didn't use the whole visual package. Did they not use the whole visual package? Like, did they do? Because the Dead did it was everything.
It was sick. They blacked out the screen a few times, but it was like part of their show. People thought like stuff cut out, but no, it was just part of the set.
Yeah. So I don't know if you could put on a bad show there. It'd be pretty hard to.
Dan, do you know anything background wise as to what went into the visuals and lights, like who did it or anything like that, or is it?
No, the only thing I heard was I think their first couple weekends they might have had a more limited package, and they've done a really good job. Like I thought the visuals and the songs were perfectly married together. The show's really cool though, because they start it and end it the same way, where they start it and you're at their house that they lived in on Haight-Ashbury, and they go zoom out into the universe. And then at the end of the show, you're back in the universe, and then they zoom back in. So it's kind of a cool bookends that they do. Dude,
that's got to be the hardest job in the world, being the guy operating those visuals, because like you said, they change the setup every night.
Yeah.
They're improvising mid-song, going into solos. I mean, for you to say that it all aligned up perfectly, that's really, really impressive.
Yeah, it was crazy. I think actually I heard this might not be true, but I think Fish, the only reason they did 4 nights and not like a residency was they wanted to change the visuals every single night, like brand new. And it was like such a crazy undertaking. They couldn't do it because they did repeat some of the visuals, but there was also new ones from night to night.
It's funny to think about complaining that they like somebody went to those shows and was like, it was great, but they did repeat the visuals on that fucking 300-foot spherical wall. It's like, shut up, enjoy the show, dude. It's a great time.
Yeah, exactly. And it was cool going both nights because like you see things that you didn't see the first, you know what I mean? Like the first night I went, it was all new and I was just trying to take it all in. And then the second night, like even when they repeated visuals, I was seeing things that I hadn't seen before. Yeah.
How many hours do you think the people that work on that have fired up Pornhub when they're testing shit? That's gotta be fucking wild.
Dude, I want to play some video games on that thing. They did there was a part in the show. It was actually during Althea's second night. I can't remember what song it was the first night, where it was literally mushroom. It was Rainbow Road from Mario Kart. Yeah. I was like, I just want to play.
The one guy who mixed drugs, like just the wrong drugs in Vegas that night, wound up at that show, who just had a fucking terrible trip. Jesus.
Yeah.
So hey, I'm going to what advice would you give to somebody going to their first Dead show there? I'm going April 9th. My little sister's a Deadhead. She went to UMass Amherst and became converted. So I'm going with her in April. First time I've seen them, but it's going to be there.
Do you know any of the songs?
Of course.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I think you just have
amount at Wrigley.
Yeah, you can also like my wife went with me the first night, and she had never been to a Dead concert. Not a big Dead fan, but like I looked at the set list and I gave her like 5 or 6 songs that I was like, if you want to listen to these, like there's a good chance they play some of these, and they played like 3 or 4 of them. So I would do that. I can do that for you. Like if I look at the set list, I can give you a list of songs that I would guess they would maybe play.
They have a bunch of radio hits. Just go play like Casey Jones or Ripple or Althea. Or they have a bunch of radio hits.
Listen to a couple shows. I'll send you a couple shows.
I'm talking about to get in the right headspace, mind space.
Oh, yeah,
Fire
mushrooms.
up a joint and go to the concert. God damn it, Dante.
Eat some mushrooms.
I brought Ryan or Chief to his first Dead show at Wrigley last year, and he went in completely blind as well. He's like a country, pop country fan, like fucking Kenny Chesney and shit. And after the concert, he's like, I get it now. I get it.
Yeah.
So you just kind of have to go and do it to understand it. But,
and that's a really cool experience too about like the community and stuff. I always tell people like, obviously there are gatekeepers of every community, sports, music, whatever. But I do think that in terms of the Grateful Dead, like I know that I needed my cousins to get me into it. Like Titus got into the Dead during COVID, and like he told me he was getting into them, and like I was like, that's fucking awesome. I fired off like 5 or 6 shows that I love, and like that's the type of stuff that's very cool. Is they want you to experience what they've experienced and are very open and welcoming to it.
You don't see fights at a Dead and Co concert.
No.
I like
There's a bunch of happy
maybe
people.
a shakedown every now and then.
Next April, you might.
Yeah.
I like seeing when I see people in like the media and things like that who are just suit and tie guys. And then it just turns out that deep down, they're actually super big Dead fans and they're in tie-dye shirts at the Sphere. I think that's fucking awesome. It's a very unique community. And from that community standpoint, I do have a question as you're more of a historian and you have more insight on the band. Is there ever a day where Bob Weir and Phil Lesh get on the stage together again?
I don't know. I think Phil Lesh I think it's like I don't think he's sick. He's just old. And he kind of said like, it's incredible what they're doing, but it's not for me. Maybe, but I think it's a lot of work to play bass in an improvisational way. And Otis, who's doing it now, is like an incredible bassist. Yeah. So I don't think it's like I don't think there's any bad blood. I think it's just he's like I probably can't keep up the same way that I was able to. Yeah.
I had always assumed it was bad blood because they did have Phil and friends, and Bob Weir was always doing his own thing. I thought there was like a schism or like a split.
But they came back together for a while, and then I think he did have some health issues at one point. It would be cool, but again, it's like one of those things. It's what they have going right now. I think it's the perfect blend of old and new because people will make the jokes. They'll say like Dead and slow and that shit because there are moments where it gets slow because Bob Weir's 76 years old. But now they've figured out a perfect blend where it's like it doesn't stay that way, and they're able to play faster for the songs that call for it.
Right. And I guess my last question out of this is, are you and John Mayer now best friends? Is there anything, planned for you guys to hang out?
I would say he's a close personal friend of mine. Yes. From the 20 minutes we spent
and because
together.
we're close personal friends, I am
so
also.
It was awesome. He's the fucking man. I mean, I already knew he was the man, but the fact that he invited me to hang out for 20 minutes was so cool.
Now, here's the real question, though. How hard was it to not ask him right off the bat to come on PMT?
I never brought it up.
You wanted to, though.
No, because I had to play it slow. Like we didn't do a picture or anything. Like I didn't want it to be transactional. Like it's the long game where
of course.
If I'm not stupid. That could be the only time I ever meet John Mayer in my life. Like that's absolutely on the table. He's John fucking Mayer. But just having that experience was insane. He's the nicest.
John Mayer is the one guy I know. Like I trust my wife implicitly, but if my wife just ever happened to grace his presence, like I know.
Yeah,
he's probably my son's new dad. Like I know that. It's okay.
No problem. Yeah,
Colin, there's a lot more people on that list, by the way.
Shut the fuck up, dude.
Yeah, a ton of them.
Jared Leto.
Jesus. Dan, this was awesome, man. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, of course. And hopefully, if anyone listens and wants shows to listen to, hit me up. Another one I'll just throw out there if you want to get into.
Why don't you drop a few if you can think of them? Because I was going to ask you, what's your most prized? I know this much about the band, but I know how deep, like you were saying, the discography is insane. I've been to a flea market before where people sell most bootlegs I've ever seen in my life. I've seen they actually press their own vinyl bootlegs, which I've never seen happen anywhere in music before. I mean, there's some rare stuff out there. What have you got that you
I would
treasure?
say if you're trying to get into it, you can their studio stuff is obviously not what they're known for, but that is a good way to just, fire up Working Man's Dead or, one of their early albums. But I would say Europe 72 is a really good jumping off point because that's kind of like a best of. And they were on fire, absolutely on fire then. The Cornell 77 that I mentioned, the Red, White, and Indigo, which is 89, I believe. And then you can just jump off from there. Like Jerry Garcia Band, one of my favorite live shows ever is called Don't Let Go. And that's Jerry Garcia Band. And it's like like one of the sweetest sugaries ever. So you can, and then there's these like weird jumping off points, and you can find your spot, your pocket, and then go from there, and then you'll find another pocket. And there's definitely certain years where it's like if you want early Dead, where it's very loose and they're finding their way. Late 60s, like I said, the 72, 77. They took a little break in the 70s. And then I personally love Brent on the keyboards. He was in the 80s, and there's some really, really great shows. And there's obviously some years where drug use got a little much, and especially for Jerry, you can kind of hear it in his voice. But then he had, kind of a comeback, a resurgence where he got clean for a while before the end. So yeah, there's just some really, really cool stuff out there.
You should just give Dante a list of like just Touch of Grey. Just be like, oh, if you go, just wait for Touch of Grey. I'm sure everyone in the crowd would love that. Just pick all the hits.
They played Touch of Grey on Friday night as the encore, and I know that everyone gives it shit because it obviously was their like one smash hit.
Yeah,
it still rocks. It's still a fucking great song.
See, I would have been pissed if that was the encore. Though.
No, it's still a great song. Like I understand that, but like I just don't. Like I was talking to a guy before the show, and he was saying we were talking because it was his first night at the Sphere, and I was there on Friday. So he was like, "What did they play?" And I told him Touch of Grey, and I was like, "Yeah, I know people say this and they shit on Touch of Grey, but it rocked." And he was like, "Yeah, when Shakedown Street came out, everyone kind of hated it because it was like a attempt at a commercial. It's disco." He's like, "But that song rocks," and they played that on Saturday night, and it fucking rocked. So yeah, I don't really care when people have preconceived notions about different songs because I'm like, they all tell a different story. And the one thing I actually should say, I forgot, the other part about the Dead is Robert Hunter, who's their lyricist for a lot of their songs, who worked with Jerry, some of the lyrics are just so good, and the stories that are told are insane, and you can just like even reading the lyrics can be a cool experience. Where you just see what's happening in all these songs. It's cool. It's just like I said, it's an ocean of music, and you can just keep diving back in and finding stuff you've never seen before.
Tell Kenny to fuck up. Like I'm looking at the lyrics to Ripple right now because for whatever that's why I pulled it up actually is because there's songs especially with the Dead because it's such a large discography. I couldn't stand the song Ripple before because that little high E chord fucking it drove me nuts for the longest time. And then I find myself listening to the song and like trying to absorb the lyrics. You tell me that Sail by AWOL Nation, Kenny's song, is as good as Ripple,
right?
Or Sugary. He says Sail a bunch of times in his fucking song.
Yeah. Fuck Kenny, dude.
But there's all the like I said, there's slow songs, there's rock and roll songs, there's blues songs, there's sad songs. Like Wharf Rat is one of my favorite songs ever, and like that's a slower one that tells a really sad story. And it's like, there's just so much out there.
You don't have to.
I have a real quick question. What was the crowd like in terms of like age? Demographics and everything. Were there a lot of younger people starting to show up to these?
Yeah, it was pretty mixed. Like I took a lot of selfies, and that wasn't with old guys. So there was, it was a very, obviously there's older people, but it was, there was a lot of guys my age, guys younger than me. So yeah, it was cool.
That's cool. Credit to their music. It spans all ages.
Yeah, I think it all comes back to what I said at the beginning. Like even if you stop listening, if you get on the bus, so to speak, you're never getting off. Whether you could take a break for a while, but they'll always be there in my life, and they'll always be a big part of my music experience.
They're omnipresent in music.
Yeah,
they're like cockroaches.
That's the thing. Like I like the Dead. I do. I feel the same way about the Dead how I feel about hockey. Is I always feel like weird talking about them because hockey fans and Dead fans are both niche diehards.
Right.
But as long as like the fucking fire and like the care and the passion is there, I'll talk about it all day.
Right.
So like hearing your passion for this just makes me want to go and dive deeper into it. So I appreciate the time, man.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. I implore anyone who's got even a little interest. It's the coolest experience to find stuff. I find new stuff every day. I go look for a new show, new song, every single day, and you just keep uncovering things, and I don't think there's any other band quite like that.
Who's an artist people wouldn't expect you to listen to that's not the Dead? Like, are you a rap artist? Anybody like that? Is there anybody else like you're diehard on?
I mean, my top 3 bands probably ever are the Grateful Dead, the band, and Queens of the Stone Age.
We can hang out. It's a good list.
Yeah, I mean, I think the band is the best band ever.
Agreed.
Like I like the Grateful Dead are I listen to them more and they're more important to me. But if you told me like who's the best band ever, I actually do think it is the band.
Well, that's why they get to keep that name. It's that's such an audacious name to have. If you weren't fucking amazing, you couldn't keep it, and they have kept it.
Yeah, but I like everything. Like I like Arcade Fire. I like Vampire Weekend, Zach Bryan.
Have you found your way moshing in a Slipknot concert or anything?
I haven't gotten into Slipknot.
So, I'm telling you, it's obviously the complete polar opposite experience. But if you ever find yourself in that, like with the chance to go, it's unmatched in the exact same way. It's just screamo music.
Yeah,
I never thought in my life I'd listen to Slipknot until I went to a Slipknot concert, and then I was like, I get it. That's awesome.
Yeah, and I was lucky that like my dad got me into music, so I've listened. You know, like I started with the Beatles and Led Zeppelin, and kind of jumped off from there. And so I have an appreciation.
You going to Stones this week?
I'm not going to Stones this week. I do like the Rolling Stones.
Are you Stones or Beatles?
Beatles.
Okay.
But I love the Rolling Stones. It's not really like I just the Beatles were kind of like the first band that got me into music. So I don't know. But yeah, like Third Eye Blind is one of my favorite bands. It goes kind of everywhere. I don't really know. The only genre I've never really gotten fully into is country. Okay. But then Zach Bryan is incredible. I don't know if he's a little more folky than country because I really do like folk music a lot. So yeah, he would be like do you guys ever listen to like Trampled by Turtles? That's another one.
Absolutely. Drive By Truckers, everybody in that genre.
Yeah, like those guys are incredible. So
piece of advice, just someone that you could dive into that is up that alley is Jason Isbell. Jason Isbell is the best songwriter of the last 20 years.
Yeah, because I like Tyler Childers. I love.
Yes,
like he's kind of country, but it's more folk. I like the folk part of it a lot more.
You're just not into like big truck, drink beer.
Yeah,
kind
right.
Of like,
I mean, I know people love it. I have no hate for it. It's just I never really fully got into that.
Yeah, no, it's understandable. I mean, we all have our genre. Like, I don't get metal. I never got metal.
You're not drooling out the sides of your mouth, so that's understandable. You didn't get into pop country.
If it's not Paul Simon, Johnny doesn't want to talk about it.
Simon and Garfunkel, another one. Yeah, it's Paul Simon, incredible. So yeah, I mean, there's really no. I love like Stevie Nicks and Fleetwood Mac. So yeah, it's kind of everything and anything.
Yeah, and I mean, Kenny does like music. Kenny's big into R. Kelly and P. Diddy. There's a lot of different artists that Kenny does get into, but it's music he's not really that into. But Dan, we're gonna let you go. We appreciate the time, man. Everybody, what the fuck? I was about to go plug, be like, go listen to Pardon My Take.
Listen to it. Yeah.
Oh man.
All right. Thanks, boys. Appreciate it,
brother.